colleagues, and I also spoke to a journalist friend of mine, and they shall remain nameless because I don't want them to get shot or something. But that's kind of come out that there's been a concerted effort to suppress this story because it's well known that Jeffrey Epstein was rubbing shoulders with the most powerful people in the world, the people that are at the table when decisions are being made. We're not. And Bill Clinton was, as I said when we were having our little discussion, he was at the lowest end of the totem pole. I'm talking like heads of major financial institutions, arms companies, as you said, deans of universities, centers of higher learning. Epstein had dirt on all of them, and they were involved in this whole thing. There's something, and I was talking about this with James this morning. There's something about historically about men in positions of power and pedophilia. There's something there, this trial is just not being reported on because there's an active effort to suppress, because there's all these powerful people that are going, oh my God, what's going to happen here? What's she got to say? I'm surprised she survived this long.
Before we get too far down the rabbit hole, guys, of that it's not being reported, I would disagree with that because what happened is that like a week ago, all these stories started to come out about how no one's talking about the Ghislaine Maxwell trial that wasn't slated to start until what was it, yesterday or today? Okay. And so that sort of got into the ether before the trial even started. It was like they were anticipating no coverage. But if you just Google Ghislaine Maxwell without the on trial live or whatever, you'll get within the last 2 hours every single major media on all continents covering it. I think it was sort of I don't know if there was like a concerted strategy to like dare the media not to cover it by posting stories like that for the last week about not covering it, but they're covering it. They just
no, they're not.
And yes, they are. Because the homepage, by the way, the homepage on CNN and Fox and all those, they don't get near as much traffic as when you land on the story page. So the homepage doesn't really matter. Almost nobody goes straight to the homepage. Almost everybody goes through links that they get on social media. So the homepage isn't actually a reflection on the biggest news. Like Ghislaine Maxwell's story in the New York Times is definitely getting more traffic than the New York Times homepage.
Then let's have a comparison then. Rob, would you say that this story is as big as the O.J. Simpson story?
Well, nothing was as big as that.
James?
In terms of
Rob, honestly, in terms of like just overall impact on our lives, people talking about it, knowing about it, compare it to, was it as big as the O.J. Simpson trial around the world? Should this be?
It's apples and oranges in a way because in OJ you had the backdrop of Rodney King had happened 2 years prior, and you've got, I'm too young to remember this, but OJ was the juice. Like he was. That murderer, as Dave Chappelle says, that murderer ran for over 15,000 yards.
Okay, maybe the OJ one.
And that murderer also cracked 2,000 yards in one season for the first time ever, and no one even came close to challenging that. So the fucking dude was as big as it gets.
Yeah.
Let's compare the Ghislaine Maxwell trial to that shithead Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
17, who, by the way, we couldn't turn on the fucking TV without a story or coverage or courtroom. Like, it was all over social media. It was every fucking news channel. Everybody was covering that little prick.
Seeing him,
there is nowhere near the amount of coverage for this Ghislaine fucking Maxwell case. I'm sorry.
But
there might be a couple of stories if you Google it and find it. There's no way that little shit is more important, and that's a bigger case than what Ghislaine Maxwell.
That I agree.
There's no comparison.
Right, but there is no comparison because as Rob just said, you did another apples and orange thing, and the reason why is because if you look at the Rittenhouse story, if you're an editor, it hits all these social issues at the same time. It's all domestic. It's about race. It's about guns. It's current. And it's hard to compare those two things. They're not quite the same. Now,
Sex,
have they been
scandal,
watering down their coverage
theories?
as far as
I'm
volume
telling you,
goes? Absolutely. They've been watering down their coverage as far as volume goes. But every major news outlet is covering something. It's you can't.
We're
say
talking about the serious lack of coverage with respect to how huge this story is.
But don't we complain when media
I agree with
like
Locke
really
on that.
milk a story for
I agree with Locke.
Yeah,
During the Rittenhouse trial, you couldn't turn around without knowing that little turd burglar was on trial for killing, and seeing that kid cry made me vomit. Like that was disgusting. Oh God, he's so piss pants. But you couldn't turn on the TV without seeing Kyle Rittenhouse. And now, we've got somebody who aided and abetted this horrible child abuser. I think that's fairly well established. And she appears, I mean, we have to remember that she's presumed innocent. She's in the midst of her trial, and that is her right. But the evidence appears to be quite damning. This is, and probably some of the most powerful people of the last two generations were involved, and not a dicky bird about it. So I got to agree with Locke on this one.
I don't think you guys are framing this right. I think there's a lot of coverage right now, but go ahead.
Jeffrey,
let's dig into that portion of it, because James is not wrong to an extent that he says, hey, people are now covering it, because if you go on CNN's website, they now have a couple of stories about it, and they've got a series of stories, a series of updates from different things. But as of this morning, nothing.
There was nothing.
Like absolutely nothing. And,
must have known
and back to the Rittenhouse thing, because what we're talking about are very, very different issues. But it all comes down to the one thing, which is, why can't we see what's going on in the courtroom? Right? Why are we not? And I'll tell you, and Rob, this is the problem that I fucking have. The problem that I have, and it was sent to me via Twitter by this young lady after I posted something. She says, hey, instead of shit posting, why don't you report on something really important, things that the mainstream media is remaining silent on? A2 Brutus, which is a really nice little nod to ancient Roman history. So I was a big fan of that.
A2 Brute, she's obviously read Julius Caesar. Good for her.
Big time. Yeah. But she makes a good point, and I know this is a gif. I don't often do this, but she says the Kyle Rittenhouse trial was streamed live for the world to see. Media pushing more division, expecting possible rioting in the verdict. Tons of media coverage. Ghislaine Maxwell's trial started yesterday. No, she's today. This was from yesterday. She's the only accomplice of Jeffrey Epstein, a global human sex trafficking ring. Yeah. And while we get her these fucking sketches, like, just in the visual.
I've got an answer for that, though, as the reason why.
It's fucking totally wrong. Yeah.
I've got an answer, is that's to protect the identity of the complainants.
Yeah.
That's the rationale, and I don't disagree with that, actually. That they wouldn't broadcast. Because here's the point. This is the reason why we have publication bans in Canada, is to encourage women to come forward. And if you put every woman who's going to be on the witness stand complaining about what Ghislaine Maxwell did, and you broadcast their identity for the world to see, you can't do that. Like, it would discourage women coming forward.
But also, there's rules about cameras in the courtroom that differentiate from one federal court to another. And this federal court, before this trial even started, was a federal court where cameras were not allowed in the courtroom.
But still, I mean, there are different rules for different trials, but the sensationalism and the amount of people tweeting and the amount of people talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial was off the fucking charts. Off the fucking charts. Yeah. You need a fucking bloodhound to find information on the current status of this trial. Yeah. You do. Right?
No,
Why?
Again, because you've got some very powerful people that are going to be in a lot of trouble when this stuff starts to come out. And I watched the Epstein documentary recently, and it was just
fucking gross, isn't it?
No, but also, here's the thing. He bought a French citizenship, right? He bought one. And this is the thing, is if he made it back to France, they could have had all these warrants out for him. And the French, it's well known, they do not extradite their nationals. You can have a warrant. A French person can come to Canada, kill 300 people, and there could be a warrant for their arrest. The French will not extradite one of their own. They won't do it.